I'm going to make another video on how to make Deathrun maps, but this isn't going to be my last videos that I've made. This is going to be something different because I'm not going to show you that it works, because I want you to experiment with what I do and to find out why it works and understand, because I don't want to be making a video for every single kind of trap you could possibly make, because that would take ages and you won't learn anything from it. See, people have asked, why did I stop making videos for this series? Well, it's because I don't want to be doing that. But I finally realised that this is probably the best way to explain things. Now, I'm hoping that after this video you might understand how to do anything with hammer. Now, I assume in this video that you at least know the basics of how hammer works and you can make brushes and stuff. This is for when you want to start making your Deathrun map. Now, I made a few videos before that just covered a few basic things. You could make a Deathrun map from it, but you're not going to advance much from there. So I hope that you know what these entities are. I mean, this isn't really needed unless you've got a skybox, which I have here, but I mean, it's kind of pointless because I'm not actually going to go in-game to show you. Now, you better know what info player team spawn does, or you're never going to be able to make a Deathrun map. So here, well, I haven't actually made it a button yet, but I'm going to do that. Anything where you want the player to interact with a button, you're going to need a func button. There was an old way of doing it with func breakable, but that's really bad and really cringe. So just use func button. Yes, I know there's no barrier here, but this is just an example map that I've made. So when you've got your button, there's two. Let's just quickly recap. There's two ways you can make a button, because you mustn't let the activator, or hail if you're used to VSH Deathrun, you mustn't let them press the button twice. So you can either do a -1 on delay before reset, which means once it's been pressed, it basically stays locked. Or you do, like when the buttons press, you do self and then kill. Now, some people don't know about self. There's a few special target entities. See, it shows up red here, but this is valid if you go in game, because you see the arrow's gone grey. There is also activator, but that's a bit more advanced. I just want to cover the basic inputs, the basic input and output stuff. Now, the advanced stuff it's only really a matter of like looking up and reading about it, but chances are you're not going to need to do anything that advanced. I'm going to stick with this method for now, so you don't actually need that because the button's going to die anyway. But you can do that if you want something fancy, like the button. You can make the button go down when you press it. See, I want you to experiment, play around with the settings, find out what lip does. Well, I'll just tell you. It just it tells you in the box the amount in inches of the buttons will leave sticking out the wall. Basically hammer units. So if I did like 8, then it would when it goes down, it would go down to, I think that's 8. Let me check. Yeah, so it'd be like that much sticking out. You might just want that effect, and you have -1 so that it doesn't come back up. You don't necessarily have to have a button move, but you should make it do something. Maybe change colour if you don't want it to move and you don't want it to disappear, because it's nice for the activator to know that it has been activated. Now, making something happen with inputs and outputs is very easy. It's a lot easier than you might think, because it's just like creating a script for a scene in a play. Like that really is all you're doing. So, like you can see here, it kills the button when it's pressed. I mean, most of these are fairly obvious on pressed. But if you use on pressed, make sure that touch activates. No, sorry, not touch activates. Damage activates is checked, so that if you hit it with your melee, it will still act as if it's been pressed. But you use on press because it means players can use +use if the server has it enabled. So there's not actually anything to interact with the inputs outputs at the moment. So let me create something. Now, what you're going to want to do is, well, first of all, what is your trap doing? Now, I know I said I don't want to go over every single trap, but I'll at least mention like the basics. So let's say we've got this stupid thing appears. You want something to appear. This is probably the worst kind of trap you can make, but it's just an example. So you got to name it. So let's say trap. I tend to be quite systematic with my naming, so I'll call it trap 1 brush. And when you have a brush entity, you want to disable it first, because otherwise it will already be there. When you disable a brush entity, it's invisible. Go on the, if you want to find out any kind of entity that you could possibly use, go on the Valve software wiki and you can find a list of entities, and go on the base entities to find all the base entities, which is stuff like Funk Door, Funk Brush. You can, it tells you what they do, but you also see them on the list, like on the class. But most maps, they just use the most common entities are Funk Brush, Funk Door, maybe Funk Door Rotating. Although you can use Funk Rotating now if you want something that just spins around. That used to be broken until 2018. Well, it worked, but you couldn't see it, so it wasn't really feasible. I mean, this is just an example, just so you can understand how easy it is to make things do something. I mean, you might have picked up on how to do it in my previous videos. Let me censor that bit. Yeah, do not make a trap like this. It's a terrible idea. Oh, that's not even. Sorry, I like it to line up properly. So, what else are you going to need? You're going to need a trigger hurt. Trap 1 hurts. Let's say I would do something like 9001. If you go on the TF2, if you look around, you can find out what these damage types do. But I know that, well, blast makes it as if you've been blown up with a rocket. It's that kind of effect. Nerve gas is a saw. I think freeze is the train icon. So I'm just going to do blast because it's funny. Always make sure your trigger hurts are disabled for the traps, otherwise it will kill people before it's even been activated. Now, I always do a logic relay for traps because I find it makes it easier to test them, because I can just do ent fire, trap 1 relay, trigger, and it will work. And the good thing about relays is that they don't take up any edicts. That's edicts, E-D-I-C-T-S, in case you misheard me. Edicts are like, basically almost every entity takes up an edict, but there's only so many you can have in a map, but some entities don't. Usually stuff like any kind of dynamic entity tends to take up an edict. But, you know, I mean, normally it won't be an issue, but... why am I doing that? So, normally it won't be an issue, but some map makers, they do reach the limit, and it can cause crashes. But if you're just making your first map, it probably won't be an issue. So, we're making so our scene here, what we want it to do is we want the brush to appear, and we want the trigger hurt to enable and kill people. And then we're also going to want a funny sound that plays, you know, just to make it a bit more dynamic. So we got the spy on there, so let's get some stupid sound, like, let's say like the spy, pain severe, well, we don't want the MVM ones. Right, spy, pain severe, we'll call it trap 1. See, I'm not even going to test this, but I know that it works. You want that. Play everywhere. It depends on what you're going for, but if it's just a stupid meme map, then it doesn't really matter. Play everywhere, just at least make sure it's going to be the same volume for everyone. If you want to make stuff fancy, you could have like them closer, but you got to play around with the volumes, and you might need more than one. So our button here, on press, we're also going to want the trap 1 relay to trigger. This is just what I do. I mean, you don't have to use the relay, but you could do it all in the button. But I just find it helps with testing. So you're going to want everything. You're going to want the sound to play, and let's just say for 3 seconds, then the brush is going to, you want the brush and the hurt to disable at the same time, so people know that it's safe to move on. So it appears, it kills, it plays a stupid sound, then it goes. Okay, so that's a really basic kind of trap. What if you wanted something like, maybe this is at the side, and it kind of squashes people. Well, what you would do is, let me bring that over here. See, I mentioned that there are... Oh, let's use a different one. Let's use engineer. Let's say you want this to come down. You would use a funk door rotating, because funk door rotating... See, these entities were made for different purposes, but they can be repurposed to make funny things happen. It doesn't just have to be used for a brush. I mean, it doesn't actually matter what you call this, but I liked, as I said, I like to be systematic. Now, this is on the... This is the Y axis, so that means it's going to rotate on the Y axis. You may have to play around with these values depending on which axis it's on, but and you may have to like reverse direction. I mean, I'm not even going to test this, but I know it's going to be one of those. And what you would do is, well, it's the same thing, but instead of all that, you just have on trigger, track 1, door. I mean, you could have the sound play still, and then I suppose you open the door, but you're gonna want it to have blocking damage, otherwise it won't actually kill anyone. So, and one other thing, you want to make sure the origin is on the point where it's going to rotate. So the origin point, this is where the actual rotation, where it rotates around. If you had it there, then it would just like if the origin was there, then it would just do that. So you need it down there so it goes like that, and that would work. And then you've got like, if you wanted it to come down from the ceiling, you can just use a funk door. And these are just really basic ones, and I'm not doing it. I'm doing it because I just want you to see that it works for anything. So how this would work is, you're actually sort of you're going down. See, the move direction is actually down, and you want it to be a bit faster than that, maybe 500, and it's just going to move down. Now, how funk door works is it goes down exactly. It moves as far as its like size. So if it's here, it will move down like this. If you haven't put any lip on it, it will move down like that because I've set the direction down. But you can also have it come in from the side. You just change the direction. Also, the origin doesn't really matter on funk door. Well, it can affect it, but it doesn't. It's not as important. I'm going to put it in there anyway. So, yeah, that opens, and then we want it to close after 3 seconds. I always control it with the inputs and outputs. Always put delay before reset, -1. So, yeah, it'll do the same thing. Unless, well, you can figure it out, I think. If you want the sound to still play, you change it to something else. It's the same thing. I want you to experiment. I want you to just try out different things. Now, it's so basic. If you want the floor to disappear, you can either use a funk brush, but instead of disabling it, you just keep it as it is, and then disable it instead of enable it with the input and output, and then bring it back after like 3 seconds. Or you could use a funk breakable, well, an easy method of doing it is with, you make the floor break. Like, you make the floor break. But always make sure it's only break on trigger, because you don't want players to be able to break it themselves. And then, this is a really simple method. You make like a bridge thing, or it doesn't have to be a bridge. you can make it fill up the whole thing again. You can make it the same colour. It's just an easy way of doing it, but sometimes it's nice to do it like this so players know that the trap's already been activated. And then what you do is you have this disabled. You have this disabled, so you'd have like trap 1 brush disabled by default, and then you'd have like trap 1 break. Remember, you can call them anything. I just like to be systematic. And then what you do is you make it break. See, even on the outputs, most of them are pretty obvious as to what they do. So you can make like that break, and what will happen, and you can change the material type. And there's only a few like inbuilt ones, but maybe something like metal. You make that break, and then let's say after 3 seconds, the brush enables. So what that's going to do is this breaks, people fall down. Obviously, make sure that underneath you've got a trigger hurt, so that when people fall down, they die. Otherwise, they'll just go down and then they'll still be alive. See, you should know how to make the trigger hurt by now. And because it's down there, you don't have to disable it, you just keep it on. Oh yeah, fall. If you do fall, that's good because it will make it say the message like blah 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 has fallen to a clumsy, painful death. That's supposed to be the trigger texture. So yeah, you go down, you die. That's what that would do. There's many different... Oh my thing almost got stuck going backwards there. I've already made a video on how like path track works and how you can use that to make funk track train, and how that can make moving things like source. You can use move linear, but well, I would just avoid that. It's a bit broken, and definitely do not use it if you're trying to make a lift. Do not use funk move linear. It's broken. If there's more than one player on it, it will get stuck. Always use a track train for that. If it's got players on it, don't use move linear, because it will not work properly. I think that's sort of it for the common entities. But go and explore all the different entities that exist, and you will find that there are some clever ways of doing things. So when you have stuff that moves, or if you ever see anything that pops up, that's a funk door. Most chances are it's a funk door. It pops up. And you can do some interesting stuff where you link a funk breakable with a funk door, so it pops up and then breaks, because a door can't break, but you make the door no draw, so you don't see the door, and you make the door passable, so it's not solid. So the door comes up, and you parent the breakable to the door, and then the breakable breaks. So it just looks like it pops up and breaks, but in the game the door's still there. Because it's invisible and passable, you don't realise it. I don't think there's much more to say, and I don't know how helpful this video will be, but I don't want to be making like videos for every possible combination. I want you to learn how to do inputs and outputs, and if you search around, there's plenty of guides and stuff, and you can use so ambient generic. Anytime you want a sound in the map, you use an ambient generic. You can get a bit more advanced with soundscapes, but look, for the most part, you're just going to be using ambient generic. If it's a basic map, it's ambient generic. You can put your own custom sounds in, but I would advise you look up, you watch one of the many videos that already exist on how to do that, or if you want to have custom textures. I don't really want to be going over stuff that's already been covered thousands of times by other people. But I think that's, that's pretty much it. I've already covered how you do wins, like win options and stuff. Mini games are a bit trickier, only because of how they work and the entities they use, but I'll give you guys a hint. If you're making 9 square, you use a logic case, and it's not really that difficult. You can just have like 9 funk breakables. You name them different things. Just like 9, like breakable 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you link them with a on case 1, on case 2, on case 3, on case 4. And what you do is the logic case, you send an output from to pick random, but you also have a math counter to count up how many squares have gone down, because you want it to end before it presses the 9th square, because you want the 9th square to win. I would look up how math counter works and how logic case works. If you want to try doing your own mini games, you will probably need them for certain mini games. But some mini games are quite easy. If you're just making an obby, you just have like a motivator behind. You have, well, you might not need a motivator. It might just be whoever gets there first. But if you want one where it's like just reds only and they got to run to the end, then you'd have a motivator, and the floor kills, and then there's a win option at the end, just like if you were doing an instant win with a trigger once that sets it off. And remember not to have, you don't need more than one round win entity. Always try and recycle entities if you can, because it saves on edicts. Yeah, I don't think there's anything more I want to say. I don't really want to make any more videos regarding this kind of stuff, because you just need to learn. I'm going to say it again, you need to learn inputs and outputs. Once you know that, you'll be able to make anything. Once you get good enough, trust me, you won't need to look up any guides, because you will know how to make anything, because you'll be able to think, right, how do I do that? Alright, yeah, I do a funk door there, I do a funk rotating there, whatever. And then you just time it like a script. Something happens, then something else happens, and then this happens, and then it goes, and that's the end of it. And that is also the end of this video. Goodbye.